One of the reasons I started the Shins was because there were certain songs I was writing that didn't translate well to the stage, like I said, in Albuquerque when everybody's partying and drinking and stuff. And that was one of those songs. So I had introduced that to Flake, and it just kind of, it was obvious that it's going to be the boring part of the set, you know? So why do we want that? So I was like, well, I'll do this other project and I can do those songs, and who knows what'll happen. It'll be fun for me, and I'll learn about recording. And so I set about doing that. So that was one of those songs. And, you know, I don't know. I think I loved a lot of the country and Western songs that my dad would play when I was a kid. And I think, you know, this is my mid to late 20s, and I think I was beginning to be a bit nostalgic and fascinated with how those songs had been written and the aesthetic of the past. And so I think it was a bit of that. I mean, it's almost like a Marty Robbins Lonesome Cowboy vibe on that song, you know, which was out of nowhere as far as the pop culture of the day. And I remember I just had the verse, and then I had a bridge thing that I was obsessed with for a long time and ended up not working. So I had basically a verse and then a chorus, and then it just was too simple. And so I remember sitting down and trying to figure out some sort of an intro for it. What could that be? And that's where that sort of the Lonesome Cowboy intro, the little vocal part happened. And then it was like, okay, now it's a song. And I didn't think too much of it. I liked it. But then a buddy of mine he's a computer coder. So at the time he was making websites for his friends and stuff like that. And so he made a Shins website for me, a guy named Chris Koski, who's a wonderful dude. And so he was able to post the song in some sort of primitive streaming thing. So we had that on his server, the file, and people could listen to it. And suddenly, like, it was crazy, but maybe a month in, it was funny because it had spread word of mouth amongst the Albuquerque scene, and suddenly girls were interested in me. It was
there was so much heavy metal going on in the Albuquerque scene that they heard something very different than
what
sensitive.
Is this?
And
yeah, and it was interesting to me that, and so I was like, oh, there's something about that song, I guess. So that ended up going on a CD of some other early Shin stuff that I had been working on, and through several events, it ended up in the hands of Sub Pop.
Very interesting. And so the lyrics, which again, as I've said, are enigmatic, did they just flow out of you naturally, or did it take a long time? Was there a lot of thinking about it? How did that all happen?
I recall that it did come fairly quickly. During that period, I had a lot of angst in me. I was unhappy with my life. It's my late 20s now. I haven't really got anything going on as far as a career goes. And so I knew I was going to have to figure something out. I wanted to find love and get married. I've always thought of myself as one day being a father. Even as a kid, So I knew I couldn't afford to do that. I didn't like my job. I was in a relationship that was kind of falling apart slowly. So I think I was writing about that angst, that late 20s, I got to get my life together, the anxiety that comes from that. So gold teeth and a curse for this town were all in my mouth, only I don't know how they got out. And that's me feeling like I'm privileged, right? Because I had a good family life and I did get to go to college and all this stuff. But then now I'm in this situation that I'm completely bummed about. So what do I do, and what's going to happen to me? How am I ever going to work this out? I couldn't picture myself in any profession being successful. And that's a disturbing thing for a young man, I think.
Well, and also it's a great lesson for people out there too, who are in their 20s, or, young people who are, feel the pressure to have it all figured out immediately.
Right. And I've got a 16-year-old now, and she's heading into her junior year, and it's time to start thinking about colleges and all that stuff. And man, when I was 16, I didn't know anything. I just didn't know what I wanted to be or what I was even capable of doing.
Yours is such a great story because it was your late 20s when the Shins really began and broke out, and in your very late 20s.
Yeah.
And so
Which I think I'm lucky for that, because I think if I had had success when I was 21 or something, it might have been just too much. I mean, I don't know that I would have been able to take it. I mean, you know, you have money for the first time and strange sort of adulation. And yeah, and obviously it can be very dangerous for young people to get too much success. And you're in the nightclub all the time. You're always drinking to get ready for the show. And so maybe I was lucky that it took me so long.
So what does the title mean, if it has a literal meaning or if it doesn't have a literal meaning? But I'm curious what new slang, how that came out.
Yeah. You know, originally I was calling it When You Notice the Stripes, which is that's the second part of that line.
Yeah.
But new slang I guess I was picturing somebody just being exasperated when they notice the stripes, which to me, that's a person wearing prison garb. You're trapped, you know? So I'm ruining the song by saying what I was thinking.
Well, I almost hate to ask you meaning, but more the process of coming up with the title, because it's not in the lyrics itself.
Right.
Well, I guess it is.
Well, because there's a line, new slang, when you notice the stripes. Yeah. So, and then I think When You Notice the Stripes just sounded wordy to me. So when it came out on Sub Pop, it was When You Notice the Stripes. And then we changed it later. And they were willing to change it, so they must have agreed.
So the song takes on a life, and very popular, it's it has an immediate audience of some kind.
And you know, interestingly, so we had gone out and opened up for Modest Mouse in Texas. When I was in Flake, we had met them, opening up for them on a little tour we did. And there I gave out and sold a couple for $5 of these CDs. Sold some of those CDs with 4 or 5 songs on it. One was new slang. Then it ended up on Napster. And it spread. The
bad Napster.
Yeah, the old Napster, right?
Yeah.
But it was good for us because I think Sub Pop was able to see that, this thing is it's already being distributed. Kids like it. There's an audience out there for this stuff.
So it took on that life, driven by the bad Napster.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting happenstance just on that level. But then how did Zach Braff find it for Garden State?
Man,
a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, I'm happy that he found us. I think that he's just an avid follower of indie music and stuff, and he just bought the record when it came out on Sub Pop right away. He must have, because we were on tour for O Inverted World, and Sub Pop had bought me a cell phone so that they could contact me because things were kind of happening. And I got a call from Stuart at Sub Pop, and they said, there's this new indie director, and he wants to use a couple of your songs in his movie. And he's already kind of famous, this guy, because he's in a comedy TV show, a sitcom. And so we recommend you let him use it. Let's just do it, you know? And I was like, yeah, totally. That's amazing. We never discussed money or anything. I have no idea if we even, received it. I think it was like, he's doing an indie film, let him use it. It's great it's like a free video for your song. I think he heard it, and he knew that he wanted a certain aesthetic for his new film, and he loved a bunch of the new indie music out there, and I was lucky enough to be one of those bands he chose, and it worked out great for us, man. It was, it just changed everything for us, because then we just go about our lives after this phone call, and I say, yeah, let him use it. Cool. It's years later. We tour that whole year. Then I go into the studio and I'm writing and then recording, and then we go out and we tour for another year. And then at the end of that, we're done. And I'm like, okay, on to the next record, whatever. And we get a call from Sub Pop again, and they say the movie came out last week or something, and it's a hit movie. And not only that, the scene is Natalie Portman. We didn't know Natalie Portman was going to be in the movie. It's crazy. And she says the name The Shins and all that, and they were just so excited. And then all of these colleges across the country wanted us to come out and play the quad or whatever. So we, for the first time, got in a bus. We had a proper bus, like a tour bus, and we toured the college scene, I guess, in the States. So we had a whole other tour that was basically based off that movie.
Well, and Natalie Portman didn't just mention The Shins. She says to Zach Braff, that character, you got to listen to this. It will change your life. And it's such a powerful scene because frequently songs, of course, are licensed for movies, but very rarely where it takes such a central role in a film. And then to have the name of the band and the song, and it will change your life and all that sort of thing. And just a funny little thing. And it is that line was so pivotal in my own life that for so many things, like when somebody says a comment or I say, you got to watch this movie, it will change your life. You know,
Yeah.
I say that all the time. Or every time I have somebody over for barbecue, I have this amazing, what we call a Cardiff crack from Cardiff, California. It's amazing, tri-tip. And I say,
Nice.
you gotta taste this. It will change your life.
Yeah.
It will change your life.
Yes. It's kind of part of the vernacular now. Yeah, it's great.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's really part of the vernacular.